Brandeis, who was becoming more and more famous in Boston as the people's attorney, now took on some of the richest corporations in the United States, the insurance companies. Taken together, the money invested by these companies affected half the population of the United States, and their cash cow was something known as industrial life insurance.
It was term insurance that people sold house to house. Agents went house to house in poor neighborhoods, collected 25 cents a week.
In 1905, as many as 20,000 insurance salesmen were collecting premiums on more than 15 million industrial life insurance policies.
If you missed even a week's payment, the policy would lapse. So these policies had a huge lapse rate, which meant that just about everything coming in as a premium was profit for the company.
Whenever slightly bad times hit, the industrial workers would not be able to keep up the payments. So that apparently over 60% of these policies went into default within 3 years. That meant that the insurance companies had a phenomenal windfall.
Brandeis gets called in when it turns out that the executives of several insurance companies were using the company's funds as sort of a private bank. It was a little bit like Enron, except they weren't bankrupting because there was so much money. These insurance companies were like money machines. But they were diverting hundreds of thousands of dollars, essentially, to private interests, houses, diamonds for their wives, expensive parties, what have you.
An investigation into the insurance companies was being run by two powerful men in New York State, Senator William Armstrong and Charles Evans Hughes, a tough investigator. Their investigation found extensive fraud, including a slush fund to pay off state lawmakers. But in the end, the insurance companies convinced the investigators that, corruption aside, the policies could not be sold any cheaper. Disheartened, the commission dissolved, with no remedy for the working man. But Brandeis would not give up. He rarely confronted evil without proposing a solution, and this one was particularly creative. He turned to savings banks and filed legislation which would allow them to sell low-cost life insurance which would not automatically default when a payment was missed.
For workmen, it's a great deal because when they come in to save, their policies, you can skip a payment if you have to and then catch up on it. At the same time, he's opened a savings account, so the banks are happy. This has brought new customers to them. But being conservative, as bankers are supposed to be, they're a little bit leery, and Brandeis has to do two things here, one of which he has to convince the banks that this is not a risk to them. Secondly, he's got to convince the legislature to pass the enabling legislation in the face of very stiff opposition from big insurance companies. And this is when he forms the first true citizens lobby.
In the State House, Brandeis went head-to-head against the insurance companies. He went on a media blitz, enlisted the support of labor leaders, ministers, and community leaders.
The way he brought law and politics together was really a thing of wonder. He understood that the law had to move, but he understood that politics might be necessary to get it on the train.
Higginson and the insurance companies frantically fought back, but Brandeis and his lobby ultimately prevailed.
Brandeis outmaneuvered. Brandeis, simply with his great marshaling of facts and his great sense of how to run a political campaign, outmaneuvered the insurance companies and convinced the Massachusetts legislature that this would be worth at least a try. He always presented things as an experiment.
Some men buy diamonds and rare works of art. Others delight in automobiles and yachts. My luxury is to invest my surplus effort to the pleasure of taking up a problem and solving it for the people without receiving any compensation.